My neighbor thought he'd found the perfect victim. Every week, he'd sneak into my backyard and steal gas from me. He thought he was getting away with it. What he didn't know was that the 5-gallon can he emptied into his lawnmower and car wasn't filled with gasoline anymore. And the moment I saw him stranded on the side of the road, I knew justice had finally arrived. If you've ever dealt with a thief, a terrible neighbor, or someone who thought the rules didn't apply to them, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you would have done in this situation. Trust me, this revenge was simple, disgusting, and incredibly effective. Let's get into it. This happened years ago, back before everyone had security cameras covering every angle of their house. At the time, I lived in a quiet neighborhood. At least it looked quiet from the outside. The problem was the guy living next door. From day one, something felt off about him. You know how some people instantly give you bad vibes? He was one of those people. He was loud, rude, constantly causing problems, and somehow always had drama following him around. Every interaction felt like he was testing boundaries, seeing what he could get away with. At first, I tried to ignore him. After all, nobody wants to start a war with their neighbor. Then something strange started happening. I had a 5-gallon gas can sitting in my backyard. Nothing unusual. I used it to fuel my lawnmower. But every single time I went to mow my lawn, the can seemed almost empty. At first, I figured I was imagining things. Maybe I had used more gas than I remembered. Maybe I hadn't filled it completely. Maybe I was just forgetting. But the pattern kept repeating. I'd fill the can. A few days later, I'd go to mow, and somehow most of the fuel was gone. Now here's what made it ridiculous. My lawnmower had a tiny fuel tank, about 1 quart. There was absolutely no way I was burning through gallons of gas mowing an average suburban lawn. Something wasn't adding up. The more I thought about it, the more it bothered me. I started checking the can more carefully, shaking it, estimating the weight, keeping mental notes. And eventually I came to one conclusion. Someone was stealing my gas. The only question was who. I already had a suspect, but suspicion isn't proof, so I decided to catch them. Nowadays, you'd just buy a cheap security camera online and be done with it. Back then, not so easy. So I got creative. I set up my laptop facing the backyard, attached a webcam, installed motion detection software, and waited. The next morning, I left the house like normal. About an hour later, I checked the recording, and there he was, my neighbor, clear as day, walking directly into my backyard like he owned the place. No hesitation, no looking around, no concern whatsoever. The guy literally walked up to my gas can, picked it up, and started helping himself. I remember staring at the screen in disbelief, not because he was stealing, because of how comfortable he was doing it. This wasn't his first time, not even close. The recording showed him entering my property less than 5 minutes after I'd left. 5 minutes. That meant he'd been watching, waiting. The second my car disappeared, he'd make his move. That level of entitlement genuinely annoyed me. I could have called the police right then. I could have confronted him. But honestly, I wanted him to learn a lesson first. A lesson he'd never forget. So I came up with a plan. And over the next week, I carefully prepared it. Now, before I continue, I'll warn you. This revenge wasn't sophisticated. It wasn't high-tech. It wasn't elaborate. It was disgusting. Every time I needed to use the bathroom, I used the gas can. Yep, every single time. For an entire week. Little by little, that 5-gallon container became less gasoline and more something else. The smell remained strong enough to fool an idiot. And fortunately for me, my neighbor qualified. By the end of the week, the trap was ready. All I needed was for him to take the bait. So I created the perfect opportunity. I dragged some luggage outside, packed a few bags, opened my trunk, checked my tires, checked my fluids, made a big performance out of preparing for a road trip. I wanted him watching. I wanted him thinking exactly one thing. The sucker next door is leaving, and I'll have plenty of time. Finally, I got in my car and drove away. The stage was set. Now here's the best part. I didn't actually go anywhere. I drove around for about an hour, killed some time, grabbed a drink, then came back home. Officially, my story was car trouble. Unofficially, I wanted front row seats. As I turned onto my street, I immediately spotted him, standing in his front yard, furious, absolutely furious. His lawnmower sat in front of him, and he was yanking that starter cord like his life depended on it. Pull. The harder he pulled, the angrier he got. His face was bright red, his shirt was soaked with sweat. He was yelling, cursing, throwing a full-blown tantrum, and I had to fight not to laugh, because I knew exactly what was wrong. His lawnmower wasn't running because it wasn't running on gasoline. It was running on karma. I casually pulled into my driveway, acted confused, went inside, then watched from the window. The show wasn't over. Eventually, he gave up on the mower. A normal person might have started asking questions at this point. Not him. Instead, he got into his car. Apparently, he'd poured some of the contents into that too. The engine started. For a moment, I almost thought he'd gotten lucky. Then he drove away. A few minutes later, I heard from another neighbor that he'd made it only a couple blocks before the vehicle died. Completely. Finished. Done. I walked back onto my patio and checked the gas can. Empty. Every drop gone. That confirmed everything. The thief had taken it all. And now he was was dealing with the consequences. Honestly, the most satisfying part wasn't even the broken lawnmower or the disabled car. It was knowing he'd done it to himself. Nobody forced him onto my property. Nobody made him steal. Nobody told him to pour mystery liquid into his equipment. His greed handled all of that. I simply gave him the opportunity. But the story doesn't end there, because this guy wasn't just a gas thief. As time went on, I learned more about him, and every new detail somehow made him look worse. He constantly caused trouble. People in the neighborhood hated dealing with him, and that's when I stumbled across one final opportunity. At the time, the local sheriff's department had a citizen ride-along program. You could apply to spend time riding with deputies and observing how they worked. So I filled out an application in his name, using information that would ensure deputies became aware of exactly who he was. Let's just say things moved quickly after that. Not long afterward, law enforcement finally caught up with him, and for the first time since I'd known him, the neighborhood got a little quieter, a little more peaceful, and a lot happier. The gas theft had been annoying, the trespassing had been disrespectful, but seeing someone who spent years taking advantage of other people finally face consequences, that was the real victory.